Caloroga Shark Media.
Hello again, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The Charlotte Observer says Dave Chappelle surprises Charlotte crowd by saying he almost canceled himself. It had nothing to do with Israel or Palestine or the controversial comments he made about the Middle Eastern conflict a week ago in Boston. On Thursday night in Charlotte, Dave said, I almost canceled the show tonight. Apparently that resulted in audible gasps and murmurs. The explanation was pretty straightforward. Dave said the brother of his wife, Elaine, had died suddenly. Dave said, we were hanging out one night and the next day just dropped dead. She was the one that told me not to cancel my tour. A man in the audience shouted out, we love your wife. Dave chuckled and said, guy in the audience screaming out, we love your wife, before adding, N-word, you don't know her. Apparently that instantly lightened the mood. Dave made some jokes about Asians having slanted eyes. The Charlotte Observer reminds us Dave's wife is Filipino. Jokes about Indians smelling like food. Jokes about homeless people. Jokes about the Ocean Gate submersible. Jokes about strippers and strip clubs in general. Jokes about Jamie Foxx using his genitals as a weapon. And, quote, joke after joke after joke about members of the LGBTQ community, which he's been at odds with for years, unquote. Dave said, I'm done talking about them transgender. I got a whole new angle. Tonight I'm doing all handicap jokes. He then mimicked a made-up response to that by a made-up person in a wheelchair who would have said, I came here to laugh at transgender people. That led to a roasting of Madison Cawthorn. That's the former U.S. representative who is partially paralyzed. Apparently that got some laughs. Charlotte Observer writes, but for those keeping score from their seats, there were a heck of a lot more jokes about transgender people than there were about disabled persons on Thursday night, and a whole lot more about gay people and about pronouns. Dave even got a joke about North Carolina's bathroom bill, tying it to a reference to a visit he made to, quote, some bar in Charlotte that was, quote, doing a whole transgender party. He claimed the lady, question mark, at the door wouldn't let him come in because of the perception that he is anti-trans. Dave said, I was like, can I use the bathroom? And then smiled and winked at the crowd. The Observer continues and said, I will say the strongest part of his set was his analysis of the Chris Rock and Will Smith slap situation, while a long windup for a joke involving a Russian mobster had a surprisingly lame payoff. A lot of this show will likely end up on Netflix, as suggested by the fact that the show opened with the Netflix logo displayed on video screens, while the streamer's iconic ta-dum sound was piped in over the PA. Opener Rick Ingram joked about the Yonder Pouches and said, I already knew who the Gen Zers were by the panic on their faces that they don't have their phone right now. They've never had to live in the moment. And I see Gen Xers looking around like, this is great. Nobody can contact me right now. I know that feeling. One of my favorite feelings in the world is flying coast to coast. Airplane mode on. You can't reach me for 6 hours. That's amazing. Apparently Donnell Rawlings messed up. He opened with, what's up, Raleigh? The show was in Charlotte. And he did this over and over. He even called them Raleigh again as he was exiting. But the Charlotte Observer points out his routine was very good. His awareness of his surroundings, not so much. Dave did address Israel-Hamas once again and said, as an American, I think we should all make our countrymen who are Jewish feel safe. We should make them feel safe so they don't feel like they have to support the destruction of another people to be safe. He added, getting married is one of the hardest things people do. And to me, Israel and Palestine are married to one another. Whether they like it or not, they're going to have to figure that stuff out. My mic just crashed. Is there like a ghost of Dave Chappelle? Luckily, I caught it before I sat here not recording for another 15 minutes. But the file's okay. You hear me, right? Yes, hi. I was about to say, it's a very good review from Charlotte there, a good recap. I keep wondering why Dave Chappelle wants to be the transgender comedian. Like, it's going to make your obituary at this point, Dave. It's going to be like, Dave Chappelle, comedian, Chappelle's show, transgender. Your obit's going to be Dave Chappelle, half-baked Chappelle show, jokes about transgender people. And I'm not sure why you want that to be your legacy, Dave. Matt Rife was on Tom Segura's podcast, actually Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer's podcast, right? They're usually not on together, so hence my confusion, but two bears, one cave. Matt Rife comes across like really thoughtful, really likable, and he's aware of what your perception might be. Like an old man in the basement would be like, oh, TikTok comedian. And I really came away loving just what he had to say. One point he told Segura, they started talking about how hot Matt Rife is right now, not only on the eyes, but his comedy. And Matt said, you can't stay at the top forever is another thing we were all talking about off air. Ralphie May always said that to me all the time. He used to say, and he used to reference Dean Cook, he used to say, you can't live on the mountaintop forever. Eventually, you have to go down. And that's why you have to be nice to everybody you meet on the way up. That's why you have to be grateful for all the experiences you have on the way up and try to enjoy it because, yeah, that moment's only for a window. It's a window forever. I've been so lucky to get so much good advice, like I was with Dave Chappelle at his summer camp. We told him about my tour, and he said, remember, pigs get slaughtered. He said, you don't have to do everything all right now. He says, if this is going to be your longevity, you have to take care of yourself and do it when you need it. If you can do 20 theater shows, you can do 20 6 months from now. You can do 10 now, 10 6 months from now. But none of us want to hear that. I was the same way. Everybody would do the same thing. Here's how bad it was. I was saying that to other people. I was like, man, you pigs will get slaughtered, and then I'd sign up for the opposite. The offers come to you. They're like, how about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like Nashville, Charlotte, Raleigh? And you're like, yeah, that sounds like a good week. And they go, Wednesday, Greensboro's got a small arena right down the street. It's right there. You want to do Wednesday? And you go, yeah. Netflix is offering free screenings on selected area screens for the new Adam Sandler masterpiece, Leo. Screenings will be held the weekend of November 11th through 12th at select Cinemark Tinseltown theaters. Check out leosneakpeek.com. In Leo, Adam Sandler plays a 74-year-old lizard who's a class pet and has been around for decades, witnessing more runny noses than he can remember. He learns he has a year left to live, and he plots to escape. Tomorrow is Monster Mash Monday. All the podcasts here at Caloroga Shark Media, that's my big fancy company. We're doing a little crossover event, so tomorrow will be all Halloween-themed stuff. But John, tomorrow's only the 30th. Yeah, I get it. You got to let this stuff breathe a little. You can't just put it out Halloween morning, then it comes and goes. This week on the Weekly Comedy Thing, that's the show I host on the Live One app. The app is free. The show is free. The app is called Live One. The show is called the Weekly Comedy Thing. On that, I do some news stories, a lot of overlap with this one, but I tell them a lot more quickly and succinctly, so you get less me and more comedy, because over there, I can actually play the comedians. So this week on the show, Ron White, Hassan Minhaj, you probably know what I'm talking about there. Pete Holmes being thankful to Bill Burr. Some Halloween comedy from Robbie Slowick and John Panette. Also hear from Mark Normand, Adrian Appalucci, Yamanika Saunders, Chris Gethard talks about the New York City alt scene, Atsuko Akatsuka, Michelle Wolf, Chris Rock, Run Funches, Eddie Izzard, Billy Connolly, the Weekly Comedy Thing on the Live One app. The show officially comes out on Monday, but I'll tell you guys, I publish it at like 7 a.m. on Sunday because I'm always up. And then I hop in the car and I do my National Donut Chain. You know what I do. And I listen to the show to see if there are any mistakes. But it officially comes out on Monday. But if you listen on a Sunday, it's usually there. Pitchfork talked to John Mulaney about what music he was listening to at what age. At age 35, Mulaney was listening to Weather Report's Birdland. Interesting. Mulaney said, I did the Comeback Kid tour and filmed a special that came out in 2015. We immediately went into the off-Broadway run of Oh Hello. Took that on tour from September to January the next year. That went from Hillary's Gonna Win to the inauguration. As the house lights would go down on Oh Hello, Birdland by Weather Report would play. Nick Kroll and I would be waiting backstage. We would listen to Birdland and make up lyrics to it in character about George and Gil thinking of every illegal possibility to get into Shea Stadium to meet the Mets. Some of the lyrics, you can meet the Mets if you want. You just have to get a custodian uniform. Or, I have a fake police badge to meet the Mets. Them wanting to meet all the Mets was once their dream. Some comedians were talking about doing comedy in Russia these days. Ivan Garkushko said, on the whole, you can joke about any topic. The important thing is how. So as not to hurt anyone's feelings or create conflicts in the room. Because there are very polar opinions, and it's not worth touching on painful subjects. You need to self-edit, not wait for editing and censorship from someone higher up. But you have to feel where this line is for yourself and understand what's allowed and what's not. Boris Zeliger says a politically risky joke usually doesn't even get a laugh, but causes a reaction like, whoa, you daredevil. Ilya Ovechkin said, for example, you'll be performing and there's some guy in the audience who just returned from the war and lost his marbles, and he interferes with the performance and shouts out. You often get that from those people, and you get into some kind of discussion with him, you try to make a joke from the stage and have a laugh so he calms down, and this can trigger him and cause problems for you. You can get punched in the face without telling a single political joke. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show on Pocket Casts or Overcast or Spotify, or if you hate back catalogs, Apple Podcasts, they made a tweak and it's got Johnny Mac a little frosted. See you tomorrow.